I am a victim of the cardiac stress test, and I had to get a stent placed for no good reason.
A few years ago, I went in for what I thought was a harmless cardiac stress test. I was just a little tired walking uphill. Nothing serious, no pain, no real symptoms. But my doctor said, "It's better to be safe than sorry." I trusted him. That one decision changed my life. The test came back unclear. They sent me for more scans. And before I could even process what was happening, a stent was placed in my heart, just in case. But here's the truth they didn't tell me. My arteries weren't in real danger. That stent? It caused complications. My kidneys suffered from the contrast dye. I felt weaker than before, and it took me months to recover, not because I was sick, but because I was over-tested. And do you know the worst part? It was completely unnecessary. I learned the hard way that some routine health checkups after 60 don't save you. They can quietly steal your health, your money, and even your peace of mind. And I'm not the only one. Millions of seniors are falling into the same trap every year, lining up for tests that sound helpful, but lead to anxiety, medication, or procedures they never needed. That's why in this video I'm going to share the 5 health checkups I wish I had avoided after 60, tests that can do more harm than good, and what you can do instead. But before we begin, I want to hear from you. How old are you? Have you ever regretted a medical test or procedure? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one because your story might save someone else. Now, let's start with the first test. It looks harmless, just a quick scan, but it can push you toward unnecessary medications that hurt more than they help. The first test on my list is one I went through myself. At the time, it felt like the right thing to do. It's called a bone density scan. Your doctor usually brings it up during your annual Medicare wellness visit. It's quick, painless, and it'll tell us if your bones are at risk for fractures, they say. And it really is quick. I remember lying there fully clothed, the machine quietly scanning my hips and spine. 10 minutes later, I was done. I walked out thinking, well, at least I'll know if I'm in danger. Then came the waiting. A week went by. 10 days. Then the nurse called. The doctor wants you to come in and go over your results. Sitting in that office, I heard the same word so many seniors hear, osteopenia. It sounded serious. The doctor explained it was mild bone loss, not quite osteoporosis, but I didn't really hear the mild part. I only heard weak bones. And suddenly I was imagining myself falling, breaking a hip, ending up in a nursing home. Then came the prescription, a bisphosphonate called alendronate, also known by the brand name Fosamax. Take this once a week. It will strengthen your bones and help prevent fractures, the doctor said. I wanted to trust him, so I started the medication. At first it seemed fine, but within weeks the side effects hit. Terrible acid reflux that woke me up at night. I had to stay upright for half an hour after taking it, or it burned even worse. Swallowing felt uncomfortable, and then came a dull ache in my jaw that I couldn't explain. That's when I started digging deeper. In fact, a large study published in the Journal of the American Geriatric Society followed more than 1,200 women over the age of 70. After 5 years, the medication lowered fracture risk by only 0.3%. And even though that study focused on women, the truth is the lesson applies to all of us as we get older. In other words, the drug barely made a difference for people like me. But the side effects? They were far more common. Digestive problems, esophageal irritation, and in rare cases something called jaw osteonecrosis, where part of the jawbone literally starts to die. I stopped the medication, and I realized I wasn't the only one. My friend Rose had gone through the same thing. Rose is 76, a retired piano teacher in North Carolina. She walks her little dog every morning. She's never fallen, never broken a bone, but her scan also said osteopenia. She panicked, started the same drug I did, and just like me, the side effects stole her peace of mind. She quit her choir practice, stopped baking for her grandkids, even stopped playing piano for a while. Eventually, she saw a specialist who told her the truth. Mild bone thinning after 60 is normal. It doesn't always need treatment. What actually helps? Simple, practical things. Light strength training with 2 to 3 pound hand weights. Balance exercises like Tai Chi or just standing on one leg near a chair. Spending time in the sun for vitamin D. And eating calcium-rich foods like leafy greens, yogurt, or even canned sardines with the soft bones. Rose made those changes. I did too. And within a few months, we both felt steadier on our feet, more confident. Rose was back at her piano. I was back gardening without that constant fear of, what if my bones break? And that's when it hit me. Sometimes a scan doesn't protect you. It labels you. It plants fear. It pushes you toward medications you may never have needed. So before you agree to a bone density scan after 60, ask yourself, have I actually fallen? Do I really have symptoms? Or am I just doing this because I'm afraid? Because a number on a screen doesn't define your health. But if a quick scan like this can create so much worry, wait until you hear about the next test. Because the second one doesn't just scare you, it can make you believe your memory is fading, even when it's perfectly fine. The second test is one I'll never forget, and to this day I wish I had paused before saying yes. It plays on a fear I think every one of us has as we get older, losing our memory. It started small. I was 65. I'd walk into the kitchen and forget why I was there. I misplaced my keys more than usual. Sometimes I'd forget the name of a neighbor I hadn't seen in a while. At first I brushed it off, but then that little voice crept in. Is this normal? Or is it the beginning of something worse? My wife noticed too. One evening she said gently, maybe you should talk to the doctor just to be safe. So I did. I sat there in the exam room, admitting my fear out loud for the first time. I'm worried about dementia, about Alzheimer's. And do you know what the doctor said? Let's order a brain MRI. It's the best way to see what's going on. I didn't question it. I thought, if they can take a picture of my brain, I'll finally have answers. But what I got wasn't peace of mind. It was weeks of anxiety. A week after the scan, the nurse called. The doctor wants to review your MRI results. And my stomach sank. I drove to the office feeling like I was about to get bad news. Sitting there, the doctor pulled up the images on his computer. He pointed to little white spots, mild shrinkage. It could just be normal aging, he said. But we can't completely rule out early cognitive decline. That was it. No clear answer, just uncertainty. And I went home carrying that weight. I stopped driving for a while. I stopped going to my church group. I even stopped reading in the evenings because I was afraid of seeing proof that I was slipping. My anxiety made everything worse. I forgot more because I was so focused on the idea that I was forgetting. Later, I learned the truth. Most MRIs in people over 60 show some changes, tiny white spots, mild shrinkage. But for the vast majority of us, it's just normal aging. In fact, a review in Neurology Today looked at over 3,000 MRIs in people aged 70 to 85 who had mild memory complaints. 86% showed some kind of abnormality, but only 3% were linked to an actual treatable condition. That means 97% of us go through the emotional toll of hearing, something's wrong with your brain when really nothing is seriously wrong. And once you're in that cycle, it doesn't stop. More tests, more worry. Some people even end up with invasive procedures, all for findings that might be as harmless as a wrinkle on the inside of your brain. What I truly needed wasn't a giant machine making scary pictures of my brain. I needed the basics: better sleep, drinking more water, keeping my mind active with small challenges, and staying connected to the people I love. When I focused on those things, sleep, hydration, brain games, even just simple conversations with friends, my memory stopped feeling like it was slipping. I realized I wasn't broken. I was just aging, and that's okay. So before you let fear push you into a noisy MRI machine, ask yourself, is this really going to help me? Or will it just give me more questions I don't need? Sometimes knowing less is actually better for your peace of mind. But if you think a brain scan can create fear, the next test can do even worse. Because the third one doesn't just scare you, it can push you straight into a hospital bed with tubes and wires you never needed. It's called the cardiac stress test. And it's the one that led me to an unnecessary stent that changed my life. The third test is the one that changed my life. And not in a good way. It started so small. I was out walking one morning up the little hill near my house. I felt a bit more tired than usual. Nothing major, no pain, just a little out of breath. At my next checkup, I mentioned it. I said, "Doc, I feel a little winded on hills lately." And what do you think he said? "Let's be safe and schedule a cardiac stress test." It sounded reasonable. A stress test is just walking on a treadmill while they monitor your heart. I thought, well, it's better to know than to ignore it. So I went. They hooked me up to wires. The nurse told me to start walking, slowly at first, then faster. After a few minutes, I felt my heart pounding. Nothing scary. But when the test ended, the technician gave me that vague look and said, "The doctor will call you about the results." A few days later, I got the call. "Your stress test looks unclear. We need more testing." That's when the snowball started. They sent me for a cardiac catheterization, a procedure where they insert a tube into an artery to check for blockages. And during that test, they found a mild narrowing. Not a dangerous blockage, just a little narrowing. But the cardiologist said, "While we're in there, we should put in a stent. It's better to fix it now." I didn't know what to say. I was scared. I thought, if I don't do this, maybe I'll have a heart attack. So I agreed. And that's the decision I regret to this day. Because that stent I didn't really need caused more harm than good. That night, after the procedure, I had a reaction to the contrast dye they used. My kidneys took a hit. My blood work went abnormal. I ended up staying in the hospital for 6 days. I felt weak, confused, and worse than before the test even started. And do you know what I learned later? For seniors over 70 without clear symptoms, stress tests often do more harm than good. Studies show the false positive rate, the test saying there's a problem when there isn't, can be as high as 40% in older adults. And once you get that false alarm, it almost always leads to more invasive procedures. Angiograms, stents, even bypass surgery, that don't improve survival for people who weren't having real symptoms in the first place. In fact, a major study in JAMA cardiology found that more than half of all stents placed after stress tests were in patients who didn't actually benefit from them. No better survival, no better quality of life. Just more hospital stays, more risk of bleeding and kidney damage from the contrast dyes. And looking back, I realize I wasn't having heart symptoms. I wasn't having chest pain during activity. I wasn't short of breath walking to the mailbox or climbing stairs. I was just an aging man who needed better hydration and maybe a bit more rest between meals. What would have been safer? A simple resting EKG, or a coronary calcium scan, a quick low radiation test that shows if you have dangerous plaque. Those are safer, cheaper, and far less likely to push you into a procedure you didn't need. But no one told me that at the time. I trusted the process, and I ended up with a stent in my heart and a long recovery I didn't deserve. So if you're over 60 and not having true heart symptoms like real chest pain during exertion or sudden drops in energy, think carefully before agreeing to a stress test. Because once you're on that conveyor belt, it's very hard to step off. And if one simple test can put a stent in your heart, the next one can do something even more invasive. It can send a camera deep inside your body, even when you don't need it. And that's exactly what happened with the fourth test, the colonoscopy. The fourth test is one I never thought would be a problem. Colonoscopies. Everyone says it's routine. Your doctor reminds you every few years. It's the gold standard for catching colon cancer early, just to be safe. I'd already had 2 clean colonoscopies in my 50s and early 60s. No issues. But at 67, my new primary doctor said, "You're due again. Let's schedule it." I remember asking, "Do I really still need this?" And he smiled and said, "It's better to stay on top of things." So I agreed. The prep was the worst part. I spent an entire day drinking that awful laxative solution, running to the bathroom every 10 minutes. By the end, I was weak, dehydrated, and lightheaded. My wife had to help me into the car the next morning. The procedure itself was quick. I don't remember much. Just the sedation, the cold room, and waking up groggy. The doctor said they found a tiny polyp and removed it. "All good," he said. "Go home and rest." But that night, I woke up with intense cramping, a sharp, stabbing pain in my stomach. I tried to stand and felt dizzy. My wife called 911. At the hospital, they discovered a small perforation in my bowel from where the polyp had been removed. It wasn't life-threatening, but it meant another hospital stay, IV fluids, pain meds, and weeks of recovery. And here's what I learned later. I probably never needed that colonoscopy in the first place. After 70, the risks of colonoscopies go up. The bowel prep itself can cause dehydration, dizziness, even kidney problems. The sedation used can cloud your memory or slow your thinking for days, and the procedure can lead to bleeding, perforations, or heart rhythm problems during sedation. A huge study in JAMA Internal Medicine looked at over 1.3 million Medicare patients aged 70 and older. And here's what they found. For every 1,000 colonoscopies done in people over 75, only 2 lives were saved. But more than 20 people experienced serious complications. That's a 10-to-1 risk-to-benefit ratio. And do you know what else? Most polyps found in older adults are small and slow-growing. Removing them often doesn't change the outcome, but the complications from removing them can. Looking back, I had no symptoms, no bleeding, no changes in my digestion, no family history of colon cancer. I'd already had 2 clean tests in my life. I didn't need that third one. What would have been safer? A simple stool test at home, something like a FIT test. It's non-invasive, no prep, no sedation. If something serious shows up, then you can take the next step. But jumping straight into a full colonoscopy after 70, it can do more harm than good. I recovered, but it took weeks before I felt like myself again. And the truth is, it stole more than just my energy. It stole my peace of mind. It made me realize how easily we seniors are pushed into tests just to be safe, when sometimes Doing nothing is safer. So if you're over 70 and your doctor says, it's time for another routine colonoscopy, ask yourself, have I had clean ones before? Do I have any symptoms? Or is this just habit? Because even good tests have a point where the risks outweigh the benefits. But if you think a colonoscopy is invasive, the fifth and final test goes even further. It scans your entire body, and it can find things that were never going to hurt you until you start chasing them. It's called the full-body CT scan, and it's the most dangerous one of all. The fifth and final test is the one I almost did, and looking back, I'm so glad I didn't. It's called a full-body CT scan. You've probably seen the ads. Private clinics promising early detection of cancer and hidden diseases. They make it sound like the ultimate peace of mind. Scan your entire body in minutes. Find problems before they start. A couple of years ago, a friend told me about a clinic offering a senior elite checkup. It included a full-body CT scan. He said, "You should do it. It'll catch anything lurking inside you before it's too late." I'll admit, I was tempted. After everything I'd been through with the other tests, part of me thought, maybe this is the one that will finally give me the full picture. But before I booked it, I did some research, and what I learned stopped me cold. A single full-body CT scan exposes you to a huge dose of radiation, 10 to 20 millisieverts. That's the equivalent of about 500 chest x-rays. And here's the terrifying part. A modeling study published in JAMA Internal Medicine estimated that the rise in CT scans in the U.S. may now be responsible for up to 5% of all cancers. 5%. That's the same cancer risk caused by drinking alcohol every single day. And it gets worse. CT scans pick up all kinds of harmless things. Tiny nodules, little calcifications, small cysts that come with age. Things that were never going to hurt you, but the moment they're seen, a red flag goes up. Then comes more scans, then biopsies, and sometimes even surgery. All for something that would have quietly stayed harmless for the rest of your life. I read about seniors who went in feeling fine, then spent months chasing incidental findings that turned out to be nothing. One man even had a lung biopsy for a tiny nodule that was benign. But the biopsy collapsed part of his lung, and he ended up in the hospital for weeks. And the irony? There is no evidence that full-body CT scans in healthy people save lives. The American College of Radiology actually warns against them for routine screening. When I learned that, I canceled my appointment. I realized something important that day. Sometimes, the more you go looking for trouble, the more trouble you create. I walked away from that scan, and I didn't feel like I was missing out. I felt like I was protecting myself from harm I didn't need. Because the truth is, good health after 60 isn't hiding in a machine. It's in how you live each day, moving your body, eating real food, sleeping deeply, staying connected to the people who matter. And if something truly feels wrong, your body will tell you. That's when the right test, the right scan makes sense. But scanning your whole body with no reason? It's like searching for treasure with a landmine detector. You might find something, but the damage could be worse than what you were trying to avoid. So no, I never did that fifth test. And I'm glad I didn't. Because after everything I've learned, sometimes less testing really is more living. So after going through all 5 of these tests, here's what I learned. More testing doesn't always mean more protection. Sometimes it creates fear, side effects, and even new problems you never had before. After 60, the best way to protect your health isn't endless screening. It's how you live every single day. Keep moving, eat real food, sleep well, stay connected. And most importantly, listen to your body. If something truly feels wrong, that's when the right test matters. Before you agree to any routine test, always ask, what will this change? What happens if it finds something? Do the benefits really outweigh the risks? Because the truth is, sometimes less testing means more living. Now I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever had a medical test you later regretted, or one that truly helped you? Share your story in the comments. It might help someone else make a better decision. And if you found this video helpful, please give it a like, share it with a friend or family member who might need to hear this, and subscribe for more honest, science-backed tips to help you live healthier and longer after 60. Thank you for spending this time with me. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next video.